My child, listen closely. Not because you should be afraid, and not because something terrible is waiting for you, but because you have been moving through your days with a heart that is carrying more than you have admitted. You have answered questions with a smile. You have told people you are tired when the truth is much deeper than tiredness. You have kept moving because stopping felt dangerous. You were afraid that if you became quiet for too long, everything you have been holding inside would finally rise to the surface. And that is why I am drawing your attention now. There is something I need you to recognize before you keep walking the same road with the same weight on your shoulders. You have been asking me to change what is around you, but there is a place within you that you have been afraid to let me enter. Stay with me, because the part of your heart you keep avoiding is connected to the peace you have been asking me to give you. I saw the moment you sat alone and stared at nothing because you did not have the strength to explain what you were feeling. I saw you pick up your phone, hoping someone had remembered you, only to put it down again and pretend the silence did not matter. I saw the conversation you replayed long after it ended. You wondered if you should have said more. You wondered if you should have remained silent. You wondered why someone you trusted could misunderstand your heart so completely. And when no answer came, you did what you have learned to do. You kept going. You took care of what needed to be done. You answered people. You handled responsibilities. You tried to pray. But your words became shorter because you were exhausted from asking me questions that seemed to remain unanswered. Listen carefully. Your silence did not make me leave. Your confusion did not disappoint me. Even when you could not find the words to pray, I knew what your heart was trying to say. There are tears no one has seen because you wiped them away before leaving the room. There are fears you have never spoken aloud because speaking them would make them feel too real. And there is one question beneath many of your prayers. God, do you still see me? My child, that question has been shaping more of your thoughts than you realize. You have watched other people move forward while you have felt stuck. You have seen doors open for others while you stood before one that remained closed. You celebrated them because you wanted to have a good heart. But afterward, in the quiet, you wondered when it would finally be your turn to breathe without carrying this constant uncertainty. You thought faith meant never feeling that way. But I need you to understand something deeper. Faith is not pretending that pain does not hurt. Faith is bringing your wounded heart into my presence instead of hiding it behind spiritual words. Think of Hagar. She was alone in the wilderness, carrying rejection, uncertainty, and fear about what would happen next. The road before her did not look like the future she had imagined. She could not see a solution, but she was seen. The God who met Hagar in the wilderness is the God who sees people in places others overlook. And perhaps you have been calling this season abandonment, when it has actually become the place where you are learning that my presence is not limited to comfortable places. I can meet you in the room where you cried. I can meet you in the disappointment you cannot explain. I can meet you in the season where nothing seems to be changing quickly enough. But there is something important you must understand. Being seen by me does not always mean being immediately removed from every difficult place. Sometimes my first work is not changing the road. It is healing the person who is walking it. You have wanted the situation to change because you believed that was the only way you could finally have peace. You told yourself, when this problem is solved, I will rest. When this person understands me, I will feel better. When the answer arrives, I will trust again. But your peace cannot remain chained to circumstances you cannot control. That is why I am calling your heart closer, not to shame you, not to accuse you, but to show you what exhaustion has been hiding. You have been carrying responsibilities that belong to you and outcomes that do not. There is a difference. You can love someone without controlling what they choose. You can pray faithfully without forcing the answer to arrive on your schedule. You can take the next step without knowing where the entire road will lead. But you have been trying to hold tomorrow in your hands, and tomorrow is too heavy for you. Give it back to me. You do not need to solve tonight what has not yet happened. You do not need to rehearse every possible disaster in your mind as if worrying can protect you from pain. You do not need to keep proving your strength by refusing to admit that you need rest. There is a reason Jesus invited the weary and burdened to come to him. He did not say, "Come when you have become stronger." He did not say, "Come when you understand everything." The invitation was for those already carrying too much. That invitation still speaks to your heart. Come closer. Bring the questions. Bring the disappointment. Bring the prayer you are almost embarrassed to pray again. Bring the part of you that still hurts when you remember what happened. I am not asking you to perform for me. I am asking you to become honest with me, because there is a difference between surrendering a burden and simply becoming accustomed to carrying it. You have carried this so long that the weight has begun to feel normal. You wake up with it. You take it into conversations. You carry it into prayer. You even bring it into moments that should have given you joy. And sometimes you wonder why you cannot feel peace, even when nothing is wrong in that particular moment. It is because your body may be sitting still while your heart is still fighting battles that ended hours, months, or even years ago. But hear me now. You cannot heal what you refuse to bring into the light, and the wound I am asking you to show me is not the one you think. There is something underneath the sadness, something underneath the exhaustion, something you have been protecting because admitting it would require you to face a truth you have avoided for a long time. And until you recognize what it is, you may keep asking me to remove a burden that you are still quietly choosing to carry. And that burden is not only what happened to you. It is what you began to believe about yourself because of what happened. Listen carefully. This is where many hearts remain wounded for years without realizing why. Someone rejected you, and you began to believe you were difficult to love. Someone left, and you began to wonder whether everyone eventually leaves. You prayed for something that did not happen the way you hoped, and somewhere beneath your disappointment, you began to question whether your prayers mattered. You made a mistake, and instead of seeing it as something you could learn from, you allowed shame to turn that moment into an identity. You stopped saying, "I failed." You began believing, "I am a failure," and those are not the same thing. My child, I saw the moment pain became a conclusion. I saw when disappointment became distrust. I saw when one closed door made you afraid to knock again. I saw when you stopped expecting kindness because expecting nothing felt safer than being disappointed. But you were never meant to build your identity from the worst thing that happened to you. Look at Peter. He was certain of his loyalty. He believed he would remain strong. Yet when fear surrounded him, he denied Jesus 3 times. Imagine remembering your own words and realizing you had done exactly what you said you would never do. Peter could have allowed that moment to become the final definition of his life. He could have disappeared into shame. He could have decided that failure had disqualified him from ever being useful again. But Jesus met him after the resurrection, not to humiliate him, not to pretend the failure had never happened. Jesus restored him by bringing him back to love, responsibility, and purpose. Do you understand what this means for you? Your worst moment does not have the authority to write the final chapter of your life. Your regret may explain why you hurt. It does not determine who you must become. Your disappointment may have changed you, but it does not have to control you. And this is why I am calling your heart closer. You keep asking for a new season while carrying an old identity into every new opportunity. You keep praying for peace while repeating accusations against yourself that I am asking you to release. You keep wanting to trust again while treating every new person as if they were responsible for what someone else did to you. Healing requires honesty. And honesty sometimes sounds like this. God, I am still angry. God, I am afraid to hope again. God, I do not understand why you allowed this. I can handle your honesty. You do not protect your relationship with me by hiding your real emotions. The Psalms are filled with cries, questions, grief, confusion, waiting, and trust. David did not always approach me with polished sentences. Sometimes he came with tears, sometimes with fear, sometimes with questions. But he came, and that is what I am asking from you. Come, not when you feel spiritually impressive. Come now. Come tired. Come uncertain. Come with the faith you have, even if it feels smaller than it used to. Because there is something you have misunderstood about weakness. You thought weakness meant I was disappointed in you. You thought struggling meant your faith was failing. You looked at other people who seemed confident, peaceful, and strong, and you wondered why you could not become more like them. But you do not know what happens behind their closed doors. You do not know the prayers they whisper. You do not know the battles they fight quietly. Comparison has made you measure your hidden pain against someone else's visible life, and that measurement has been unfair to you. A seed beneath the ground does not look impressive. There is no applause, no visible progress, no proof to show anyone. But beneath the soil, something is happening. The shell is breaking, roots are forming, life is preparing to move upward. And if the seed judged its future only by the darkness surrounding it, it would believe nothing was happening. Perhaps you have done the same. You looked at this quiet season and called it wasted. You looked at the delay and called it rejection. You looked at the silence and assumed I had forgotten. But some of the deepest work in your life cannot be seen while it is happening. Patience grows quietly. Discernment grows quietly. Compassion grows quietly. The ability to recognize what is healthy and what is harmful grows quietly. You are learning things now that comfort alone could never have taught you. This does not mean every painful thing was sent to hurt you for a lesson. It means pain does not have to be meaningless when you place it in my hands. I can bring wisdom from what confused you. I can bring tenderness from what wounded you. I can teach you boundaries without making your heart hard. I can teach you to forgive without teaching you to return to situations that repeatedly destroy your peace. And I need you to hear that. Forgiveness is not permission for someone to keep hurting you. Love does not require you to ignore wisdom. Peace does not mean you must remain available to every person who demands access to you. There are moments when faith looks like staying, and there are moments when wisdom looks like walking away. Ask me for discernment, because your exhaustion may be coming from trying to keep alive something that has already completed its season in your life. You keep returning to the same door, the same conversation, the same need to be understood, the same hope that if you explain yourself one more time, someone will finally recognize your heart. But what if peace begins when you stop begging for understanding from people who have already decided not to listen? What if you do not need one more argument? What if you need permission to become quiet? My child, not every accusation deserves your response. Not every misunderstanding needs your correction. Not everyone who walks away must be chased. Jesus himself was misunderstood. He was rejected. He was falsely accused. Yet he did not spend his entire life trying to convince every person to approve of him. He remained faithful to the Father, and perhaps this is one of the hardest lessons you are learning. You cannot build your peace on being understood by everyone. Some people will misunderstand your boundaries. Some will question your decisions. Some will remember an older version of you and become uncomfortable when you begin to change. You must learn to ask a different question. Not, will everyone approve of me, but am I walking faithfully with the wisdom God has given me? There is freedom in that question. Because you have spent too much energy trying to manage how other people see you. You replay your words. You wonder whether you disappointed them. You change your decisions to avoid conflict. You say yes when your heart is exhausted. Then you lie awake at night wondering why resentment is growing inside you. You cannot pour endlessly from a heart you refuse to care for. Even Jesus withdrew to quiet places to pray. He served, he loved, he gave, but he also stepped away from the crowds. Rest is not always laziness. Silence is not always avoidance. A boundary is not always rejection. Sometimes the most faithful thing you can do is become quiet enough to hear what constant noise has been preventing you from recognizing. And now I need you to ask yourself something. When was the last time you sat with me without asking for an immediate answer? When was the last time you prayed without rushing? When was the last time you opened Scripture not because you were searching desperately for a sign, but because you wanted your heart to become steady again? You have been looking for dramatic confirmation, but sometimes guidance arrives like a lamp, not lightning. A lamp does not reveal the entire road. It gives enough light for the next step. You have been demanding certainty about next year when I am asking for faithfulness today. You want to know how everything will work out. You want to know who will stay. You want to know whether the door will open. You want to know when the waiting will end. And because you cannot see the entire road, you have been afraid to move. But faith has never required complete visibility. Abraham was called to go without being given every detail of the journey. He had to trust while walking. Not after everything became clear, while walking. And this is where your next season begins. Not when every question disappears. Not when you finally feel fearless. Not when everyone understands your decisions. It begins when you stop asking uncertainty to leave before you obey the next faithful step. Maybe your next step is to pray again. Maybe it is to forgive without reopening the door. Maybe it is to apologize. Maybe it is to rest. Maybe it is to ask for help. Maybe it is to stop returning to the place that keeps reopening the same wound. Maybe it is simply to admit, God, I cannot carry this anymore. That admission is not defeat. It can become the beginning of surrender. If these words are meeting you in a place you have been afraid to talk about, you can write, I give you what I cannot carry, in the comments. Not as a performance. Let it be a small act of honesty, because what I am asking from you now is not perfection. It is openness. There is still something deeper beneath your exhaustion. You have spent so long surviving that you have forgotten how to receive. When kindness comes, you become suspicious. When something good happens, you immediately wonder how long it will last. When there is peace, your mind begins searching for the next problem. You have trained your heart to remain prepared for pain. You call it being careful, but sometimes fear wears the clothing of wisdom, and I need you to learn the difference. Wisdom sees danger clearly. Fear sees danger everywhere. Wisdom helps you move carefully. Fear convinces you never to move. Wisdom protects your heart. Fear locks every door. You have asked me to heal you, but healing will eventually require you to live differently. You cannot ask for freedom while continuing to obey every fear that kept you imprisoned. There will come a moment when you must trust again. Not everyone, not blindly, but wisely. There will come a moment when you must hope again. Not because disappointment is impossible, but because disappointment does not deserve to become the ruler of your future. There will come a moment when you must allow yourself to believe that your life can contain joy without immediately preparing for it to disappear, and perhaps that moment is closer than you think. But before you can receive what comes next, there is one final place in your heart you must be willing to open. It is the place where you have secretly blamed yourself for not being able to save everyone, fix everything. You have carried guilt for outcomes that were never fully in your control, and until you release that guilt, you will continue punishing yourself for things I never asked you to carry.